Jake Morrison wiped the grease from his hands and stepped back to look at his latest project. The converted garage stretched before him like a metal maze. Old spaceship parts hung from the ceiling on chains. Broken alien computers sat on workbenches, next to human tools that had seen better days. Most people on New Denver Colony thought Jake was crazy. They said he was wasting his time playing with junk. Jake did not care what they thought. He had been an engineer in the Earth Navy for 15 years before coming to this frontier world. He knew how things worked. More importantly, he knew how to make things work better. The colony of New Denver sat on the edge of human space. It was not a rich world or an important world. The soil was hard to farm, the weather was cold most of the year. But it was far enough from Earth that a man could work on his dreams without anyone bothering him. That was exactly what Jake wanted. His daughter Amy walked into the garage carrying 2 cups of coffee. She was 16 years old and smarter than most adults Jake knew. Amy had her mother's dark hair and quick mind. Her mother had died in a transport accident 3 years ago. Since then, it had been just Jake and Amy against the world. "Dad, you have been out here for 6 hours," Amy said, handing him the coffee. "Mrs. Patterson came by asking if you want to buy vegetables from her garden. I told her you were busy building something that would change the galaxy." Jake smiled. Amy always believed in him, even when his ideas seemed impossible. "What do you think of this piece?" he asked, pointing to a curved metal section that gleamed with strange colors. Amy walked closer and ran her hand along the smooth surface. "It feels warm. And look at these patterns in the metal. I have never seen anything like this." "That is because it came from a Zephyrian scout ship," Jake explained. "The Zephyrians use a different kind of metal working than humans do. They grow their ship hulls instead of building them. This piece was part of their engine housing." 3. Months ago, a damaged Zephyrian vessel had made an emergency landing near the colony. The alien crew was friendly enough. They needed help fixing their navigation system. Jake had offered to help, even though most colonists were afraid of aliens. The Zephyrians were tall and thin with silver skin that seemed to shimmer in the light. Their leader, a female named Kess, spoke perfect English. She watched Jake work on their computer systems with great interest. When Jake suggested a way to improve their power flow, Kess was amazed. "Humans think differently than we do," Kess had said. "Your solutions are simple but very effective. We have been trying to solve this power problem for years." When the repairs were finished, Kess insisted on paying Jake for his help. She gave him several pieces of advanced Zephyrian technology, including the curved hull section that now sat in his garage. "But what are you going to do with all this alien stuff?" Amy asked, looking around the garage at the collection of parts from different worlds. Jake set down his coffee and picked up a tablet computer. The screen showed engineering drawings that looked like no human ship ever built. "I am going to build something new, something that combines the best ideas from humans and aliens." Amy studied the drawings. The ship design was strange but somehow made sense. It had the solid, heavy look of human engineering, but with curves and flowing lines that seemed almost alive. "It looks like a predator," she said. "That is exactly what it should look like," Jake replied. "For too long, humans have been the weak ones in this galaxy. Our ships are slower than Karathi vessels. Our weapons are less powerful than Xerian guns. Our computers are not as smart as Zephyrian systems. But we have something they do not have." "What is that?" "We know how to fight dirty. We know how to take things that should not work together and make them work anyway. And we are too stubborn to give up when everyone says something is impossible." Jake walked over to another workbench where a small reactor core sat surrounded by tools and cables. The core was human-made, but Jake had been modifying it for weeks. Strange crystals from a Karathi mining ship were built into the housing. Thin wires made of Zephyrian metal connected everything together. "The power source is the key to everything," Jake explained. "Human reactors are strong but simple. Alien power systems are efficient but fragile. If I can combine them correctly, the result should be more powerful than anything else in the galaxy." Amy picked up one of the crystals. It was blue-green and seemed to glow with inner light. "Is this safe?" "As safe as anything else we do out here on the frontier," Jake said with a grin. "Besides, I have been running tests for weeks. The combination works. It just needs to be scaled up. The garage. Door opened with a loud grinding sound. Governor Marcus Webb walked in with 2 security officers behind him. Webb was a small man who always wore expensive clothes that looked out of place on a frontier world. He did not like Jake, and Jake did not like him. Morrison. What exactly are you doing out here? Webb demanded, looking around the garage with obvious disapproval. Building a spaceship, Jake replied calmly. You do not have a license to build spacecraft. You do not have permits for handling alien technology. And you certainly do not have authorization to construct weapons systems. Jake put down his tools and faced Webb directly. Governor, I am not breaking any laws. All of this technology was legally obtained. The Zephyrians gave me these parts as payment for repair work. I bought the Karathi crystals from a licensed trader. The human components are salvage that I purchased from the Colonial Salvage Authority. Webb's face turned red. That may be technically legal, but it is dangerous. What if your experiments cause an explosion? What if alien technology contaminates our environment? What if hostile aliens decide to attack us because they think we stole their secrets? What if pirates attack us and we have no way to defend ourselves? Jake shot back. What if traders decide to charge us double for supplies because they know we cannot fight back? What if our children have to live their whole lives being afraid of everyone else in the galaxy? Amy stepped forward. Governor Webb, my father is not trying to cause trouble. He just wants to make things better for everyone. Webb looked at Amy with something that might have been sympathy. Young lady, I understand you believe in your father, but some dreams are too dangerous to pursue. This colony has managed to stay safe by not attracting attention. Your father's project could change that. Maybe it is time for a change, Jake said quietly. Maybe it is time for humans to stop hiding and start standing up for ourselves. The argument was interrupted by a loud beeping sound from Jake's communication console. He walked over and activated the screen. The face of Captain Rodriguez from the Colonial Defense Force appeared. Jake, we have a problem, Rodriguez said without greeting. Long-range sensors have detected a large fleet moving toward the outer colonies. The ships match Zerion Raider configurations. They will reach New Denver in approximately 18 hours. Webb's face went pale. The Zerion Raiders were the most feared pirates in the galaxy. They specialized in attacking isolated human colonies. Entire worlds had been stripped of everything valuable, with the surviving colonists sold into slavery. How many ships? Jake asked. At least 12, possibly more. Jake, you need to get your people ready for evacuation. The Defense Force cannot reach you in time. Jake looked around his garage at the half-finished spaceship and alien technology. Then he looked at Amy, who was watching him with complete trust in her eyes. Captain, what if we do not run this time? Jake asked. Rodriguez laughed bitterly. Jake, I know you were Navy, but 12 Zerion ships would be a challenge for a full battle squadron. What could one colony possibly do? Jake smiled and looked at his collection of impossible technology. We could find out what happens when humans stop playing it safe. The news about the Zerion Raiders spread through New Denver colony like wildfire. Within an hour, Jake's garage was full of people. Some came to argue, others came to help. A few came just to see what Jake Morrison was really building in his converted workshop. Lisa Carter was the first to volunteer. She had been a fighter pilot in the Colonial Defense Force until a disagreement with her commanding officer ended her career. Lisa was 34 years old with short red hair and sharp green eyes. She had been living on New Denver for 2 years, working as a cargo pilot and trying to forget her past. Jake, I heard what you told Captain Rodriguez, Lisa said, pushing through the crowd to reach him. Are you serious about fighting those raiders? Jake looked at her carefully. He knew Lisa's reputation. She was an excellent pilot but had a problem with authority. That problem had cost her a military career, but it might be exactly what Jake needed now. Dead serious, Jake replied. But I need someone who can fly this thing when it is finished. Someone who understands combat tactics and is not afraid to take risks. Lisa grinned. I have been taking risks my whole life. When do we start? The next person to step forward surprised everyone. Pete Johnson was a weapons specialist who had been blacklisted by the Colonial Defense Force for reasons nobody talked about. He was a quiet man in his 40s with gray hair and scars on his hands from working with explosives. Most colonists avoided Pete because of his reputation. "Morrison, you are going to need someone who understands weapons systems," Pete said in his gravelly voice. "I may not be welcome in the official military anymore, but I know how to make things explode." Jake nodded. "What kind of weapons are we talking about?" Pete walked over to the workbench where Jake had been assembling the hybrid reactor. He studied the design for several minutes before speaking. "This power output is incredible. With this much energy, we could power weapons that would make Xerian raiders think twice about attacking anyone." More people began volunteering. Tom Bradley, a former Navy mechanic, offered to help with the ship's engines. Sarah Williams, who had been a communications officer on a merchant vessel, said she could handle the ship's electronic systems. Even Dr. Helen Stone volunteered to serve as the ship's medic. Governor Webb tried to stop the gathering. "This is madness," he shouted over the noise of the crowd. "You cannot turn a garage project into a military operation. These people are not trained soldiers." "Neither were the farmers who fought at Lexington and Concord," Jake replied. "Sometimes, ordinary people have to do extraordinary things." Amy had been taking notes on everything that was happening. She looked up from her tablet and spoke to the crowd. "My father has been working on this ship design for months. The calculations show that it should be faster and more powerful than anything the Raiders have, but we only have 17 hours to finish building it." The crowd fell silent. 17 hours to complete a spaceship seemed impossible, even with all the help they could get. Jake climbed up on a workbench so everyone could see him. "I will not lie to you. This is dangerous. The ship is untested. We do not know if all the systems will work together. We might fail completely. But if we do nothing, the Raiders will take everything we have built here. They will destroy our homes and sell our families into slavery. I would rather die fighting than live as a slave." The crowd began to murmur agreement. These were frontier people who had left Earth to build something better. They understood the value of taking risks for freedom. Lisa raised her voice above the crowd. "What do you need us to do?" Jake jumped down from the workbench and activated a large display screen. The ship's blueprints appeared, showing every system and component. "The hull sections are already built. We need to connect the power systems, install the weapons, and integrate all the computer networks. Sarah, I need you to work on the communication and navigation systems. Pete, the weapons are your responsibility. Tom, help me finish the engine installation." The next 16 hours were the most intense of Jake's life. The garage became a factory floor with people working around the clock. The smell of welding torches filled the air. Sparks flew from cutting tools as hull sections were fitted together. The sound of hammering and drilling never stopped. Amy coordinated everything, making sure each team had the parts and tools they needed. She had created a schedule that broke the work down into manageable pieces. Her organizational skills impressed everyone, including Governor Webb, who eventually stopped trying to interfere and started helping instead. The ship began to take shape. The hull was a patchwork of different materials, but it was solid and functional. Human steel plates were welded together with Zephyrian alloy reinforcements. Karathi crystal arrays were built into the armor to distribute energy from weapons hits. The result looked strange but powerful. Lisa spent hours in the pilot's seat, learning the ship's control systems. The cockpit combined human flight controls with alien sensor displays. It was confusing at first, but Lisa had flown many different types of ships. She began to understand how everything worked together. Pete's weapons installation was a work of art. He had taken human railgun designs and modified them with Zephyrian energy focusing systems. The result was a weapon that could fire solid projectiles at incredible speed or energy beams with pinpoint accuracy. He also installed defensive systems that could create energy shields around the ship. The hybrid reactor was the heart of everything. Jake had spent months perfecting the design, and now it was finally ready for full power testing. The reactor combined human fusion technology with alien crystal matrices. When activated, it produced more energy than anything its size had a right to generate. Tom Bradley worked miracles with the engine systems. He had taken standard human thruster designs and enhanced them with alien gravity manipulation technology. The ship would be able to accelerate faster and turn sharper than any raider vessel. Dr. Stone set up a small medical bay in what had been Jake's tool storage room. She did not expect to treat many patients, but she wanted to be ready for anything. The work continued. Word spread to other colonies. Ships from nearby systems began arriving with additional volunteers and supplies. Captain Rodriguez sent a message saying he was bringing 2 Defense Force frigates, but they would not arrive until after the raiders reached New Denver. With 2 hours left before the raider fleet arrived, Jake called everyone together for a final briefing. The ship was as ready as they could make it in such a short time. All systems had been tested except for the weapons, which they would have to trust would work when needed. "What are we calling this ship?" Lisa asked from the pilot's seat. Jake looked around at all the people who had worked so hard to make his dream real. The ship had been built by ordinary colonists using salvaged parts and determination. It represented everything that made humans special in a galaxy full of advanced civilizations. "The Backyard Thunder," Jake said with a smile, "because that is exactly what she is." Governor Webb shook his head but was smiling too. "Morrison, you are completely insane, but if this works, you will be a hero." "If this works," Jake replied, "we all will be heroes." The ship's engines came online with a deep rumble that shook the entire garage. The Backyard Thunder was ready for her first flight, and possibly her last. In the distance, long-range sensors showed the Xerian raider fleet getting closer to New Denver. The battle for the colony's freedom was about to begin. The Backyard Thunder lifted off from New Denver colony just as the sun was setting. Jake sat in the engineering station, watching power readings on screens that glowed green and blue. Lisa gripped the flight controls with steady hands. Pete checked his weapon systems one more time. The ship felt solid beneath them, but this was her first real flight. "All systems look good," Jake announced over the communication channel. "Reactors running at 60% power. That gives us plenty of room to increase output if we need it." Lisa tested the controls carefully. The ship responded better than she had expected. The hybrid engines gave smooth acceleration without the vibration that most human ships had. The steering was precise, almost like the ship could read her mind. "This feels amazing," Lisa said. "She handles like a fighter, but with the power of a heavy cruiser." "Where did you learn to design ships like this, Jake?" Jake smiled as he monitored the reactor. "I learned from watching alien engineers make the same mistakes over and over. They build ships that are either fast or powerful, but not both. They make everything complicated when simple solutions work better. This ship uses the best ideas from everyone and ignores the bad ones." The Backyard Thunder flew toward the outer edge of the New Denver system. Long-range sensors showed the Xerian raider fleet still approaching, 12 ships in a standard attack formation. They would reach the colony in less than an hour. On the colony below, Amy Morrison coordinated the evacuation. She had convinced Governor Webb to move all the children and elderly people to the underground shelters. The rest of the colonists were hiding anything valuable and preparing to fight on the ground if the Thunder failed. "Jake, this is Amy." Her voice came through the ship's communication system. "I have been analyzing the Xerian fleet formation. They are using a standard pirate attack pattern. 3 heavy cruisers in the center, 6 fighters on the flanks, and 3 support ships in the rear." Jake was proud of his daughter. Even in a crisis, she was thinking clearly and providing useful information. "What does that tell us about their tactics?" "They expect easy targets," Amy replied. "Pirates do not usually face serious resistance from frontier colonies. They will probably try to intimidate us into surrendering before they start shooting." Pete laughed grimly. "Then they are going to be very surprised when we start shooting." Back, the Thunder's sensors began picking up detailed information about the raider fleet. The ships were old but well-maintained. Xerian technology focused on reliability and firepower. Their ships were slower than human vessels but had stronger armor and more weapons. "Lisa, take us around the dark side of the third moon," Jake ordered. "I want to get a closer look at these raiders before they know we are here." The ship glided silently through space, using the moon's gravity to hide their approach. The Xerian fleet was spread out over several thousand kilometers, moving confidently toward New Denver. The pirates clearly expected no resistance. As they watched, the lead Xerion ship began broadcasting on all frequencies. The message was in accented English, spoken by a voice that sounded like grinding metal. Humans of New Denver Colony, this is War Chief Vex Darkscale of the Xerion Bloodfang clan. You will surrender all valuable materials, technology, and healthy workers. Anyone who resists will be sold to the slave markets of the Outer Rim. You have 1 hour to comply. Jake felt anger building in his chest. These pirates thought they could terrorize innocent people just because humans were supposed to be weak. It was time to change that assumption. Jake, are we really going to attack 12 ships with one untested vessel? Pete asked quietly. Not attack, Jake corrected. We are going to teach them that humans are not easy prey anymore. Lisa brought the thunder out from behind the moon. The ship accelerated toward the Xerion fleet, her engines glowing bright blue in the darkness of space. The hybrid reactor hummed with power as Jake increased output to 80%. The pirates noticed them immediately. The Xerion fleet changed formation, with the fighters moving forward to intercept the single human ship. War Chief Darkscale's voice came over the communication channel again. Unknown human vessel, you will stand down immediately. Your ship will be added to my fleet after your crew is properly disciplined. Lisa opened a channel to reply. Xerion Fleet, this is the Backyard Thunder of New Denver Colony. You are ordered to leave this system immediately or face the consequences. The pirates burst into laughter that could be heard over the open channel. 12 ships against one was not even a fair fight in their minds. Jake had expected this reaction. Pirates were bullies who relied on intimidation and superior numbers. They had never faced humans who were prepared to fight back with equal or better technology. Pete, are the weapons ready? Jake asked. All systems charged and locked on target, Pete replied. Just give me the word. The first Xerion fighters opened fire with energy weapons that lit up space in red and orange flashes. Their shots were well aimed but predictable. Lisa had been studying Xerion combat tactics during the flight. She knew they preferred direct attacks with overwhelming firepower. The thunder danced between the energy beams like she was performing a ballet. Lisa's piloting skills, combined with the ship's superior maneuverability, made her almost impossible to hit. The hybrid engines allowed sharp turns and sudden acceleration changes that confused the Xerion gunners. Now I understand why they call it the Backyard Thunder, Lisa said with excitement in her voice. This ship moves like lightning. Jake watched the Xerion fighters trying to surround them. The pirates were using standard tactics that worked against normal human ships, but the Thunder was not a normal ship. Pete, show them what human weapons can do, Jake ordered. The Thunder's main guns fired for the first time. Pete had modified human railgun technology with Zephyrian energy focusing systems. The result was devastating. Solid metal projectiles accelerated to incredible speeds struck the nearest Xerion fighter. The pirate ship's shields collapsed instantly, and the hull cracked like an eggshell. The Xerion fleet stopped laughing. One of their fighters was crippled and drifting helplessly. The human ship had done it with a single shot. War Chief Darkscale's voice came over the communication channel again, but now it sounded angry instead of amused. All ships, destroy that human vessel immediately. Use maximum firepower. The entire Xerion fleet began firing at once. Space around the Thunder filled with energy beams, missiles, and plasma charges. But Jake had planned for this moment. The ship's defensive systems activated automatically. Karathi crystal arrays built into the hull absorbed energy from the weapon's hits. The power was channeled through Zephyrian control circuits back to the ship's reactor. Instead of being damaged by the attack, the Thunder actually became more powerful. Impossible, Pete whispered as he watched his power readings climb. The ship is using their attacks to charge our weapons, Jake grinned. That is the idea. Human defensive philosophy is different from everyone else. Instead of just blocking attacks, we turn them into advantages. The Thunder fired again, this time with both main guns. 2 Xerion fighters exploded in balls of fire and metal. The remaining pirates began to realize they were not fighting a normal human ship. Lisa pushed the Thunder into a steep dive toward the largest Xerion cruiser. The pirate ship was 3 times bigger than the Thunder, with enough firepower to destroy a small moon. But size was not everything in space combat. "Jake, I have an idea," Lisa said over the noise of weapons fire. "Can this ship do a high-speed ramming attack?" "The hull can take it," Jake replied. "But are you sure you want to try that on our first flight?" Lisa's laugh was wild with excitement. "Jake, we built this ship to do impossible things. Let us see how impossible we can get." The backyard Thunder accelerated directly toward the Xerion cruiser at full power. The pirates fired everything they had, but the Thunder's defenses held. At the last second, Lisa pulled the ship into a sharp turn that took them along the cruiser's hull, firing continuously. The Thunder's weapons tore through the Xerion ship's armor like it was made of paper. Explosions ran along the cruiser's length. As critical systems failed, the pirate ship began spinning out of control, its engines dead and its weapons silent. War Chief Darkscale's fleet was in chaos. 3 ships destroyed, 1 cruiser crippled, and they had not even scratched the human vessel. For the first time in his career, the Xerion commander was facing an enemy he could not intimidate or overpower. The remaining Xerion ships began to retreat, but Jake was not finished with them yet. The pirates had come to New Denver expecting easy prey. Instead, they had found predators. War Chief Vex Darkscale watched his fleet fall apart around him. 3 of his best ships were destroyed. His flagship cruiser was badly damaged and losing power. The human ship called Backyard Thunder was moving through his formation like a shark among fish. Darkscale had been raiding human colonies for 15 years. Humans were supposed to be weak. Their ships were slow and their weapons were primitive. They always ran or surrendered when faced with superior Xerion firepower. This battle was breaking every rule he knew about fighting humans. "All ships, fall, back to defensive formation," Darkscale ordered over the communication channel. "Concentrate fire on that human vessel. It cannot be invincible." But his surviving captains were already panicking. 2 more fighters had been destroyed while Darkscale was giving orders. The Thunder was moving too fast and hitting too hard. Xerion weapons could not lock onto a target that changed direction every few seconds. On the Thunder, Jake watched his power readings with amazement. The hybrid reactor was performing beyond his best calculations. Every hit they took from Xerion weapons fed more energy into their systems. The ship was actually getting stronger as the battle continued. "Lisa, take us after those support ships in the rear," Jake ordered. "If we can disable their supply vessels, the rest of the fleet will have to retreat." Lisa spun the Thunder around in a turn that would have torn apart a normal spaceship. The hybrid engines handled the stress easily. She aimed the ship at the 3 Xerion support vessels that were trying to escape the battle. Pete had been studying Xerion ship designs during the fight. He noticed that their support ships had weak armor but carried valuable equipment. "Jake, those ships probably have fuel, ammunition, and spare parts for the whole fleet. If we capture them instead of destroying them, we might learn some useful things." "Can you disable them without blowing them up?" Jake asked. Pete smiled and adjusted his weapon settings. "Human weapons have a setting that Xerion guns do not have. We can shoot to wound instead of kill." The Thunder caught up with the fleeing support ships in minutes. Pete fired carefully aimed shots that destroyed their engines, but left the hulls intact. All 3 vessels went dead in space, unable to move or fight back. Darkscale realized what the humans were doing. Without his supply ships, his fleet could not continue raiding in this sector. They would have to return to base for fuel and repairs. But first, he had to deal with the Thunder. "Ramming speed!" Darkscale ordered his flagship crew. "If we cannot outgun them, we will crush them." The damaged Xerion cruiser turned toward the Thunder and accelerated as fast as its broken engines could manage. Darkscale planned to sacrifice his ship to destroy the human vessel. It was a desperate move, but he was out of other options. Jake saw the cruiser coming straight at them. The Xerion ship was much larger than the Thunder. If it hit them, both ships would be destroyed. But Jake had one more trick that the pirates did not expect. "Lisa, bring us straight at them," Jake ordered. "Pete, charge the main guns for maximum power shot. We are going to play a game of chicken with a Xerion war chief." The 2 ships raced toward each other at incredible speed. The distance between them closed rapidly. Darkscale was betting that the humans would lose their nerve and turn away at the last second. He was wrong. At 500 meters apart, Pete fired both main guns at the same instant. The Thunder's weapons, supercharged with power from the hybrid reactor, struck the Xerion cruiser dead center. The pirate ship's hull split open like a broken egg. Darkscale's flagship began breaking apart even as it continued forward. Lisa waited until the last possible moment before pulling the Thunder into a sharp climb. The wrecked Xerion cruiser passed beneath them, its hull trailing fire and debris. Darkscale's voice came over the communication channel one last time. "Impossible," the war chief gasped as his ship died around him. "Humans do not fight like this. Humans are not supposed to win." Jake opened a channel to reply. "War Chief Darkscale, you made two mistakes. First, you thought humans were still the same weak prey you have been hunting for years. Second, you attacked our families." The Thunder turned to face the remaining Xerion ships. Only 4 vessels were left from the original fleet of 12. The survivors were already moving away from New Denver at maximum speed. They had no desire to continue fighting the deadly human ship, but Jake was not ready to let them escape. These pirates had terrorized human colonies for too long. Someone needed to send a message that would reach every raider base in the galaxy. "Lisa, pursuit course," Jake ordered. "Pete, prepare the communication system for wide broadcast. I want every pirate in the galaxy to hear what happens next." The Thunder chased down the fleeing Xerion ships one by one. Each time they caught a raider vessel, Jake gave the same offer over an open channel that could be heard throughout the sector. "Xerion vessel, this is the Backyard Thunder. You have one chance to surrender. Drop your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Any ship that continues to flee will be destroyed." 2 of the remaining ships chose to surrender. Their captains had seen what happened to Darkscale's fleet and wanted no part of continuing the fight. The Thunder disabled their weapons and engines, leaving them drifting for Colonial Defense Force ships to collect later. The last 2 Xerion vessels refused to give up. They were smaller, faster ships that thought they could outrun the human vessel. They were wrong again. Lisa pushed the Thunder to maximum speed. The hybrid engines glowed white-hot as they accelerated past anything the fleeing pirates could manage. When the Thunder caught up with the first ship, Pete used the precision settings on his weapons to surgically remove the pirate vessel's engines. The final Xerion ship tried a desperate trick. The captain fired his entire ammunition supply at a nearby asteroid, hoping to create a debris field that would slow down the Thunder. Instead, Lisa used the flying rocks as cover, weaving between the asteroids like she was flying through a forest. When the Thunder emerged from the debris field, she was directly behind the last Xerion ship. Pete disabled it with a single, perfectly aimed shot that left the pirates alive but helpless. The battle was over. Jake looked at his status screens and could hardly believe what had happened. One ship, built in a garage by amateur engineers, had completely defeated a Xerion raider fleet that should have been able to destroy an entire human battle squadron. "Jake, this is Amy." His daughter's voice came through the communication system from New Denver Colony. "We are reading 12 Xerion ships on our sensors. 8 destroyed, 4 disabled. Is that correct?" Jake smiled as he looked out at the drifting wreckage and captured pirate vessels. "That is correct, Amy. The Backyard Thunder is coming home." Governor Webb's voice joined the channel. "Morrison, I owe you an apology, and probably a medal. What you have done here today will change everything for human colonies in this sector." But Jake was thinking bigger than just one sector. News of this battle would spread throughout the galaxy faster than any spaceship could travel. Every alien civilization would hear about the human ship that defeated a Xerion raider fleet. Some would be impressed, others would be worried. A few might even be scared. Lisa began flying the Thunder back toward New Denver. The ship had performed perfectly during her first real test. Every system had worked exactly as Jake had designed it. The combination of human engineering and alien technology had created something that was truly greater than the sum of its parts. Pete was already planning improvements for the weapon systems. The battle had shown him several ways to make the Thunder even more deadly. He was also thinking about building similar ships for other human colonies. As they approached New Denver, Jake could see the lights of the colony growing brighter. Hundreds of people were probably watching the sky, waiting for their defenders to return home. The backyard thunder had saved them all, but more importantly, she had proven that humans could defend themselves against any threat in the galaxy. TU, Age of Human Weakness was over. The Age of Human Strength had just begun. 3 weeks after the battle, New Denver Colony looked like a completely different place. Ships from across the galaxy were arriving every day. Some came to see the famous backyard thunder. Others came to meet the humans who had defeated a Zerion, raider fleet. A few came to buy the technology that had made it all possible. Jake Morrison stood in his garage, which was no longer just a garage. It had become the most important engineering facility in human space. The walls were covered with blueprints for new ship designs. Tables were loaded with alien technology that various governments wanted him to study. Representatives from a dozen different civilizations waited outside, hoping for a chance to speak with him. Amy sat at a computer terminal, answering messages from colonies throughout human space. Every settlement wanted to know how to build ships, like the Thunder. Engineering schools were offering Jake teaching positions. Military contractors were bidding millions of credits for his ship designs. "Dad, Captain Rodriguez is here again," Amy announced. "He has someone with him this time, Admiral Kate Rogers from the Terran Colonial Fleet." Jake looked up from the reactor core he was modifying. Admiral Rogers was the highest-ranking military officer in human space. If she was coming to New Denver, personally, it meant the Colonial Fleet was taking the Thunder very seriously. Admiral Rogers entered the garage with Captain Rodriguez behind her. She was a tall woman in her 50s with gray hair and sharp blue eyes. Her uniform was covered, with medals from battles against pirates and hostile aliens. She looked around the garage with obvious amazement. "Mr. Morrison, I have been fighting Zerion raiders for 20 years, Admiral Rogers said. "In all that time, the best we could do was slow them down. You destroyed an entire raider fleet with one ship. How is that possible?" Jake wiped his hands on a rag and faced the Admiral. "Admiral, we stopped thinking like victims and started thinking like engineers. Human ships have always been built to run away from threats. I built a ship designed to eliminate threats." The Admiral walked over to examine the Thunder, which was docked in the expanded garage bay. The ship looked even more impressive after her battle repairs. Scorch marks from Zerion weapons had been polished out. New armor plates made from captured alien materials gleamed in the workshop lights. "The design is unlike anything I have ever seen," Admiral Rogers observed. "It combines technologies from multiple civilizations in ways that should not work together, yet somehow it all functions perfectly." Pete Johnson emerged from under the ship's weapons array. He had been installing improved targeting systems based on what they learned during the battle. "Admiral, the secret is not trying to copy alien designs. We take the best parts and throw away the rest. Then we add human improvements that aliens never think of." Lisa Carter dropped down from the pilot's compartment where she had been testing new flight controls. "Admiral Rogers, would you like to see what this ship can do? We have been making improvements since the battle. The Thunder is even faster and more powerful now." Admiral Rogers smiled. "I would be honored to fly with the crew that changed the balance of power in the galaxy." An hour later, the Backyard Thunder lifted off from New Denver with Admiral Rogers in the observer seat. Jake had invited several other important visitors to join the demonstration flight. Kess, the Zephyrian engineer who had helped inspire the ship's design, sat next to a Karathi trade representative. Even Governor Webb had come along to see what his colony had produced. Lisa put the Thunder through a series of maneuvers that demonstrated her incredible capabilities. The ship could accelerate faster than any fighter while carrying the firepower of a heavy cruiser. She could turn sharper than anything her size and fly more precisely than ships half her mass. "This performance is impossible according to everything we know about spacecraft design," Kess observed in her musical Zephyrian voice. "How did you overcome the structural limitations that prevent such capabilities?" Jake pointed to the hybrid reactor display. "We did not overcome the limitations, we eliminated them. Most civilizations build ships that are either fast or strong, but not both. Humans do not accept that limitation. We found ways to make ships that are fast and strong and smart all at the same time. The Karathi representative, a short being, with crystal-like skin, leaned forward. Our government would like to purchase manufacturing rights for this technology. We are prepared to offer substantial compensation. Admiral Rogers spoke before Jake could answer. Mr. Morrison, the Colonial Fleet would like to make you an offer as well. We want to commission you as a fleet admiral and put you in charge of a new shipbuilding program. With your designs, we could build a fleet that would make humanity the strongest power in the galaxy. Jake was quiet for several minutes as he thought about the offers. Outside the ship's windows, space stretched endlessly in all directions. Somewhere out there, other human colonies were still living in fear of raiders and hostile aliens. The technology in this ship could change that fear into confidence. Admiral, I appreciate the offer, Jake finally said. But I am not a military officer. I am an engineer. What I can do is teach other engineers how to build ships like this one. Instead of one fleet admiral, you could have 100 ship designers. Amy looked up from her note-taking. Dad, what about the colonies that cannot afford to build ships like the Thunder? Small settlements need protection too. Pete grinned as he understood what Amy was thinking. We could design smaller ships using the same principles. Fast patrol boats that could outfight anything pirates might send against isolated colonies. Lisa was already imagining the possibilities. A whole new class of human ships, each one designed for specific missions, but all using hybrid technology. Fighters, cruisers, cargo vessels, even exploration ships, Kess spoke in her melodic voice. The Zephyrian Assembly would be interested in technology-sharing agreements. Your engineering approaches could benefit many civilizations. When they returned to New Denver, Jake found even more visitors waiting. News reporters from across the galaxy wanted to interview the engineer who had built the deadliest warship in known space. Scientists wanted to study his hybrid reactor design. Military leaders wanted to understand his tactical innovations. But the most important visitor was a young woman named Carol Adams. She was an engineering student from Earth who had traveled across the galaxy to meet Jake Morrison. She carried a bag full of blueprints for ship improvements she had designed based on news reports about the Thunder. Mr. Morrison, I want to learn how to build ships like this, Carol said with determination in her voice. My home colony was attacked by raiders last year. We lost everything because we had no way to fight back. I never want that to happen to anyone else. Jake looked at Carol's blueprints and was impressed by her ideas. She had found ways to improve his designs that he had not thought of. More importantly, she had the same passion for protecting people that had driven him to build the Thunder. Carol, how would you like to help me establish the Morrison Institute for Advanced Engineering? Jake asked. We could train engineers from across human space to build ships that would make every colony safe. 6 months later, the Morrison Institute had trained its first class of 50 engineers. Each graduate returned to their home colony with plans for building defensive ships. The Institute's workshops produced new designs every week, each one better than the last. The Backyard Thunder had become the flagship of a new colonial defense fleet. Lisa Carter commanded a squadron of 12 ships, all built using Jake's hybrid technology. Pete Johnson ran a weapons research facility that designed guns no pirate ship could withstand. Amy Morrison, now recognized as a certified starship engineer despite her age, led the Institute's design team. Her latest project was a massive exploration ship that could travel farther than any vessel in galactic history. Governor Webb, meanwhile, found himself running the most important colony in human space. New Denver had become the center of a technological revolution that was spreading throughout the galaxy. Jake Morrison returned to his garage workshop every evening, just as he always had. But now the garage was part of a complex that employed thousands of people. The impossible dream of building the deadliest warship in the galaxy had become the foundation for making humanity the strongest civilization among the stars. The age of human weakness was truly over. The age of human greatness had begun, and it all started in a garage on a frontier world with one man's refusal to accept that humans had to be victims forever.